welcome to the Y'all Ain't Right podcast. This is our bonus real estate episode. We're doing a buyer series. So this is the first part of the buyer series. I'm here with Todd and Tyler. I'm Brittany. And so I guess we can get into it. This is going to be for buyers before they even step foot into their first house. So this is essentially getting prepared, finding a real estate agent, all that good stuff. So I'll start with Tyler. Tyler, I know you have a really good buyer consultation that you go through with everybody. As far as forms and maybe that buyer consultation, what does that consist of?
So for my people, what I like to do now that things have changed and you're required to have something signed before you go and tour a house, a lot of times I work with a lot of first-time buyers, and they go into this blindly and they say, hey, I really have no idea what I'm doing. Can you help me get started? And that's why I really like the consultation, because whether they've done it before or they haven't done it before, I can sit down with them with a guided booklet, run through all the stages of the process, meet them face-to-face, give them a chance to ask questions. It takes about an hour. If we're good at the end of that, I'll probably go ahead and have them sign a representation agreement that says, hey, we're married together in an agency relationship, so that we can actually go out and start looking for houses and things like that. There are several steps there that you have to get through first, but that's my first introduction, is all the parts. What do you do? What's the phases? What's the important bits? And things like go find a lender and all the things that we'll probably talk about today. But that's basically my intro point. Plus, you want to make sure that you guys are going to work well together. You don't want to work with somebody that maybe you've never met before, maybe you probably don't get along. It's a really good way to sit down and get to know each other.
Yeah, because different real estate agents, I think, kind of specialize in different things. Like for you, especially with first-time home buyers, you kind of know having someone that can break down the process, because there's great real estate agents that know more than, a lot of other people, but maybe they're not able to articulate like, hey, this is what you need to be prepared for. Or maybe they're too busy and they just don't have the time to sit down with somebody and do that full consultation and give them, be on call at all hours of the day, whether it's because of kids or they're just busy or have a second job. So that's a good way to, first step is meeting with your real estate agent that you potentially want to work with. And now it is required in all 50 states that you have some sort of an agency signed before stepping foot into your first house. So in Tennessee, we've got our own forms, and especially it's very regional. So, meeting with them, figuring out what that says and what happens, what does that representation look like? What does it offer? What am I going to, owe money for if I'm in breach of this contract, and what that looks like. So I think that's really good that you can sit down and go through that with them, because a lot of first-time home buyers, it's like super overwhelming. To get that from you would be like super beneficial.
Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, look, I don't like working with someone until I know that they're well informed, at least on the starting points, because it's really hard to just jump into something blindly, and I don't expect anybody, especially a first-time buyer, to know all the steps. I mean, they don't know how they're paying their agent, how much that costs. They don't know what closing costs are. They don't know what credit is required. They don't know, what does the timeline look like? If I put a contract on a house today, am I closing tomorrow, or is it 6 months from? People don't know unless you've had some experience. And so sitting down and setting those expectations on the front end, it makes everything go so much more smoothly. It makes my job easier too. So I would absolutely dedicate that hour on the front end, because it's going to save me so much time later. And I always send them home with that cheat sheet booklet, and it tells them, a summary of all the stuff we've talked about. So,
and it's changed a ton in the last 10 years and state to state, from the time their parents did it or last time their friend bought it and stuff like that. I bought in 2008, and it's changed since then. The restrictions on lending are a lot more. We do have the buyer's rep agreement now, and people hear bits and pieces, or they've seen something, or their parents when they bought in 1986. It's changed a ton, especially state to state. Some states use attorneys, some use title, some there's deeds, some, and everything's a little bit different. So it's good to sit down with people. And it's changed. When we first started, 6 years ago, you were close right behind that. We were always met with people, sat down, whether it was here or have a coffee with them and go over the process. And then COVID hit, and you were meeting them at the first house you showed or doing a video, and it was on the run. They were learning. Now it's slowed down a little bit. The market's equaled out a little bit more. It's just a little wacky now. It's, kind of all over the place. But you have that time to sit down with them and go through the process because, I think the hardest people, especially for first-time home buyers, is, you want to overextend yourself and go for the swing for the fences, but when you start talking about down payments and closing costs and stuff like that, and credit checks and all that, the stuff, you got to kind of pull the reins a little bit until they get pre-approved with a lender and stuff like that, because you don't want to be looking in threes and then find out you can only look into 250s and stuff like that, or you have to ask for closing costs and stuff like that. So you just got to set expectations, because you don't want to get halfway through it and be like, then you got people that are heartbroken. But
yeah, I think that's actually a really good point, because I hadn't even thought about, from state to state, it's even from region to region in Tennessee. I know how different it can be. And like you were saying, in COVID, we even had different forms that had to get signed that are no longer required anymore. And that, especially even if you're not a first-time home buyer and you're from maybe a different state or a different region, or it's just been a few years, it could be completely different. Yeah. So I know once you get your maybe your buyer representation signed with somebody, you've established your agency, and that's maybe the homework that you do for them and show them what you're going to offer. What homework do you send your buyers home with before they start looking at a house? What's something that you say, hey, what do you need to consider? What do you need to do?
Well, I really have them look at their financials, talk to a couple different lenders. I recommend that.
And now a word from our sponsor. If you're looking to buy a home in East Tennessee, be sure to call Amanda Mize with Mortgage Investors Group. With over 30 years of experience, they're your trusted local partner. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or looking for a VA home loan, they offer the most extensive options available, often with lower rates than the competition. No down payment? No problem. Amanda will guide you every step of the way from pre-approval to closing. Already have a quote? Call Amanda to see if they can save you money or lower your interest rate. Reach out today at Amanda Mize at migonline.com or call 865-243-5919. Your dream home is just a call away.
Talk to multiple people. I even tell them to check, look at other realtors, call them, text them, email them, see how they reply. Some people communicate really well. Some people don't communicate. Millennials like to text, so they're not gonna. If you call them, they're not gonna pick up the phone most of the time. But we all. Well, they don't. We use all the forms of communication, and some people barely can email. And stuff like that, or they're wet signers and stuff like that. Or they share an email and stuff like that. So, you can get around that with the digital sign and stuff like that. But sometimes you have wet signers, you literally have to go to their house every time they have to sign paperwork and stuff like that. It makes it for a lot of travel, and you got to have longer times and stuff like that, and availabilities and stuff like that. But, as far as homework, I have some videos on my YouTube. I send them, have them look over that. It goes through the process, but really get a lender that they can trust and talk to and work through stuff, and really figure out the budget, because you have a lot of costs, from your appraisal, credit check, your home inspection, radon, chimney. There's a lot of little fees and stuff like that can add up. If you get under contract on a house and it happens. Maybe the inspection's bad and it's something you don't want to deal with, water or roof, and they don't, you can't negotiate it, and you're back looking and stuff like that. You're going to have to do another home inspection on a house and stuff like that. So you got to be aware of that. Things can go sideways, and really, have a lender that can, go through the process, and you don't want them buying a new car and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I know back in my retail days, we used to do credit checks, and anytime people would say, "Oh, we're getting a new house," and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait till you close." They'd be looking at Tempur-Pedic, $20,000 Tempur-Pedics on adjustable bases, and I'm like, no, don't. Your lender will come and kill me, even though people would always say, "Oh, it's a soft check" and stuff like it. Do not buy anything.
Do no checks.
Yeah, no checks.
Do not buy anything. Just a change in your bank account.
Yeah.
Because now, since 2008, they check your employment right before close again. And that's, you get a lot of delays on that, especially if you have a employer that's not responsive. I had somebody that, I forget if it was an out-of-state, like HR or something like that. They couldn't get they weren't fast on the verifying the employment again and stuff like that. Like it was pulling teeth. So there's a lot of stuff since 2008 lending-wise that gets people tripped up.
Which even sharing stuff like that, I mean, that's important because people don't think. And that's part of the consultation process for me is like, we're going to get your team together. First off, like I've got great inspectors, title company recommendations. Like your agent should be your point of contact for all the things you need. I mean, of course, if you've got, a family member who owns an inspection company or whatever, if you've got a friend who recommended somebody and you just absolutely want to use them, you can do that.
Just have Dad do the home inspection.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. But, yeah, no. Mm-mm.
Dads have killed more deals doing the home inspection or following the home inspector around.
Yeah.
My advice there, listen to the professional. I know you love your dad, and he may have built a house back in the 20s, but...
Don't pay them all this money to not use them.
Yes.
Yeah. And listen to them. Most of them are going to tell you what's a danger needs to be done, or... roof leak or something like that, or something that's an easy fix, or a honey-do list that you can do on a weekend.
Yeah, so I think those are a good place to start is vetting and finding a real estate agent. If you want to sit down with them, getting that agency established. Then, of course, budget, finding the right lender, making sure you're looking in the right price range, make sure you've budgeted for all the things leading up to closing. And then I think for me, I like to, there's a lot of people that maybe they'll say, "Oh, well, we're willing to do work on the house while we live in it." It doesn't necessarily need to be like a new construction or something like that. Maybe if you're willing to do work on things, if you've got a budget, I would recommend saying like, "Hey, there's going to be something that comes back on every single inspection. Take a look into, you can call pretty much any company out there, whether it's like a roofing company, foundation company, etc. You can call them and say, "Hey, what's generally the cost of, minimum repairs if something came back on an inspection? What's the cost of a roof for roughly a 2,000 square foot house?" Obviously there's going to be things, if there's wood rot or if there's a pitch of the roof, all kinds of different things are going to factor in, or you could even Google, and you can Google what it costs per square foot for redoing the floors. And that'll generally, if you look at it by state or whatever, that generally gets you about where you need to be. And so you can figure out, hey, am I actually going to be able to afford the cash up front to work on these things? Or maybe do I want to go with, say, if you go $50,000 higher to get into a house that's more move-in ready, the cost per month on your mortgage might not be as high as you think it is to get in that little bit higher of a price range. So I think for me, I have a lot of people that are kind of on the fence on whether they want to work on it or if they want just move-in ready. And I would say just take a look at the price of things like that and figure out if you've got the cash. Because a lot of times if it's just cosmetic things that you're thinking about, those are usually the lower end of cost. So a lot of times people are going to work on those to get more out of their house. So you see a lot, if you're seeing cosmetic problems that need to be handled, a lot of times they're going to come with also maybe water damage or things like that along with it.
You're always going to find something.
Yeah, because a lot of times it'll be maybe an estate or someone that couldn't afford to keep it up or whatever it is. So I'd say just kind of weigh the costs on that and kind of budget on how much you've got for things like that. So and then of course I'm sure they would tell you too, you can always find great things on Realtor and Zillow and all that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for something more specific, definitely get with your real estate agent because they can give you a more specific search. So if you're looking for land, for example, they can send you properties that are listed as unrestricted. If you're looking to maybe have horses or something, if you're looking for a home with a fence, we can, send you things filtered with a fence. So, anything else you want to add to before stepping foot into the first house?
No, just be ready to. A lot of people say they just want this area, and then when they start looking, they start expanding. So, especially if it's a husband and wife, you need to be on the same page of what you want and what you're looking for, and just be kind of, I always go a little bit bigger and a little wider on my searches and stuff like that. I know maybe that's down the road more, but if you're thinking about looking, you want to pick your lender and your real estate agent. It could be months, or I've looked for people for years, or at least had them on a search and talked to them from time to time. Maybe they're not ready, or they've not moved here yet, and stuff like that. Then get on a search and get a kind of feel for it, and don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said. Of course, I mean, we could sit and talk about it all day.
Oh yeah.
But like the biggest thing for me, advice-wise, is before you even talk to your real estate agent, have a conversation between husband and wife, or you and your spouse, whoever that may be, and decide, what are we looking for, what areas, why. If we're relocating for work, we need to be within 30-minute drive of the kid's school, whatever that is. Does the school zone matter? Get some of those questions answered for yourself first, and then that way when you come and talk to your agent, he can help, or she can help guide you through kind of what that search looks like. So you're getting your needs and wants, how many bedrooms, where, all of that together. And then you talk to your agent, get your team established, and then you can start some of those searches and things. But, I mean, before you're pre-qualified and ready to go, you're shooting in the dark. You don't know your price point, but even before you know your price point, you know what you like, you know what you need. You can start kind of getting a feel for some of that stuff, and then maybe talk through all the next steps with your person.
And the better the credit, the better rate you're going to get. Everyone always asks, what's the rate? It depends. I mean, I look at it every day, but I mean, it's always, lately it's been up and down, a 0.06 and this day and stuff like that. But a lot of it is based on your credit and what you're looking at and stuff like that. And
you can't call a lender and just say, hey, what's the rate today? Right. That's not how that works. Please do your lender a favor and give them all the information they need to help you make good decisions. So you get all of your paperwork together too, because you're going to need it.
Yeah, they're going to want everything.
Yeah, 2 months pay stubs, 2 years tax returns, 2 months bank statements, and if you change jobs, a copy of an offer letter, an employment letter, or something like that.
And then they're going to check it again.
All right, sounds good. Well, I think that's a good for first pre-showing buyer series part 1. Yeah. So join us as we get into the home search process.
Yeah, and if you guys have questions about stuff that you see or hear during this, please reach out and let us know. Also, if you want to sit down and have a consultation with any of us, ask us any questions in person, please let us know. You can make an appointment with any of us, and we're happy to talk to you.
Our email, all of our socials, and you can find our individual contact phone numbers in the description.
Yep.
So thanks for joining us. See y'all for part 2.
Yeah. See you guys.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. If you or someone you know is thinking about buying or selling real estate in East Tennessee, email us at holler@yarpod.com. You can also reach Brittany Hawkins at 423-270-9572, Todd Huber at 865-456-0101, Tyler Letner at 865-816-0076, and Nick Cantey at 865-250-5167. Our office at Wallace Real Estate can be reached at 865-584-4000. Make sure to ask for YAR Pod. See y'all next week.